The views expressed in this program do not necessarily reflect those of this station.
Welcome to Insights into Northeast Michigan, a WBKB News public affairs program. Insights deals with the issues affecting those in the community as well as Northeast Michigan and the state. And now, Insights into Northeast Michigan.
Welcome to Insights. I'm Sherry Stewart, and today we're talking about Second Amendment sanctuary cities. Now, over the last couple of weeks, several cities and counties in our viewing area have taken up the conversation or the consideration of becoming a Second Amendment sanctuary city. So joining me to talk about that today is Carrie Mullins. She is the chair of the Alcona County Republicans. And Carrie, I'm glad you're here today.
Thank you for having me.
And we want to start out this conversation explaining to me what does the term sanctuary mean? How are you using that when you're talking about becoming a Second Amendment sanctuary city?
In regards to the word sanctuary, it's got dual meaning. I'll read the Black's Law definition. A safe place, especially where legal process cannot be executed. Now that sounds really dangerous.
It does.
And legally speaking, having the term sanctuary would probably be a bad thing. These resolutions that we're talking about are non-binding resolutions.
Okay, now explain that. Okay, symbolic. Okay.
Basically, they're a way for us to unite one common term. It's like when they ratified things in the Constitution. Everything had to be the exact same in order to be properly ratified. In order for us to unify, we want to use the same wording as all the counties surrounding us, and we do have several counties surrounding us who have passed the resolution with the word sanctuary.
So there are 15, if I'm understanding correctly,
Yep.
there are 15 counties in the state of Michigan to date that have designated themselves as Second Amendment sanctuary cities, or should it be counties or Second Amendment sanctuary counties?
Yes.
Okay, so when you were talking about uniting, what are you uniting around? What are you coming together to support, actually?
Well, there's a couple of things. The term sanctuary was originally used as kind of a rebuttal towards what everybody knows as sanctuary cities. We have illegals who come in, they get arrested for a crime, they get put into jail, processed, ICE retainer comes up, but they let them go anyway. That's can I say the left's definition? And let me explain the difference between when I use left and right, I'm talking about the extremes. When I say Democrat and Republican, even independent, believe it or not, there's a lot more unity there than people would think. So we do get along, we do have discourse, and I know from the legislators that I've talked with, they do for the most part get along and create great legislation. It's these
so
far
the extreme,
left,
so
right,
in your mind, it's the extreme
extremes.
viewpoints on both ends of the spectrum.
Yeah. And we do it both. I mean, I'm not gonna lay off on the Republicans because we can get rowdy. Basically, that being said about sanctuary cities, we take that and do the second meaning for that dual meaning term, which is in the regular dictionary you would see a safe place, oftentimes a safe religious place, where one can go and be protected from an egregious offense, which in this case, the egregious offense would be a violation of our Second Amendment rights.
So let me ask you this. So what is your response to organizations, and this is just one as an example, for example, the Brady Campaign. So this is one of America's oldest organizations that they are a gun violence prevention group. And so they see the efforts with, or the language, I guess, with the designation of Second Amendment sanctuary city or county. In this case, they see it as an affront to gun safety laws. So what is your response to that? Is it just a misunderstanding of the terminology that you're using, or are they, out of bounds in how they're viewing this activity? What is your response to them?
I would say that it's in part a misunderstanding of the language, but also an emotional reaction to it. You hear the word sanctuary, you automatically go to lawlessness. That's what happened at our Board of Commissioners meeting. Carolyn Drummond, who had brought it up, saying, I have concerns about the word sanctuary.
Okay.
And if you do read Black's Law's dictionary, that it can be frightening. But in a non-binding resolution, it unifies us. It unifies us, and it also kind of sticks it to the left. We are using the opposite meaning of that. And basically, they're protectorants. Second Amendment sanctuary counties are protectorants of the Constitution of the United States of America, particularly the Second Amendment, our right to keep and bear arms.
So where in your mind, or the activities that's happening, I guess, nationwide, where in your mind do you see that your Second Amendment rights are actually being infringed upon? Where are the examples of that, such that, so that this Second Amendment designation is actually necessary?
Right. Unfortunately, it is necessary. There are right now several states with red flag laws. I'm going to cite Maryland, Vermont, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, Delaware, New Jersey, Illinois, Indiana, Florida, Colorado, Washington, Oregon, Nevada, and California. They all have red flag laws. Which basically states that if a person has a concern about an individual who happens to own a firearm, is going to hurt himself, herself, or somebody else, they can contact the police and report that. And then it's up to the police to determine what's the next course of action. And in cases where they think it's a viable threat, they will go in, they will knock on somebody's door. You're asking for that confrontation for the citizenry and law enforcement, and you have that collision. We're here to take your guns because you are a threat to yourself.
But isn't that presumptuous? Because the police knock on your door, it doesn't necessarily mean that the outcome is going to be that they're going to take your weapons.
With the red flag law, when they present, we're here to collect your weapons because you have been identified as a threat. When that is being said, that's basically, I don't know how that can be misinterpreted as we're coming for your guns. There have been deaths in relation to these confiscations. Anytime you put law enforcement together with constituents, I mean, even if they're in the same room, there's a heightened level, and that's just human behavior.
There's a lot of emotion. This is a very emotional issue on both sides, whether you are a proponent of this language, as you say, or if you're just don't think it's necessary, or if you think that it is an affront to basic gun safety in our country.
Yes, and unfortunately, there's more than just red flag laws. It's gun confiscation. It's universal background checks, which include.
But isn't that part of gun safety, though?
Universal, no. We do have regular, we already have laws on the books. You got to have a background check. We need to know whether or not you're a felon. We need to, the law enforcement databases is all that's tapped. Universal background checks include medical records, include, in some cases, they can include where you're located. Are you in a high-risk neighborhood? If so, you don't deserve to have a gun. Where does it end?
Okay, so this is so that in your mind is to protect those Second Amendment rights. For that,
we collectively, yes, that's there's a lot of us who yes, that's an infringement.
And a lot to talk about. And I know before we go for this segment, I know that you have is it a weekly or monthly meeting?
We have a monthly meeting.
Okay.
The fourth Monday of the month. We meet at 7 p.m. It's the Chosen Ranch Community Center in Lincoln.
Okay, and you'll be taking up this topic again, this ongoing discussion about Second Amendment sanctuary county.
Our Board of Commissioners meet the first and third Wednesdays of the month, and we will be essentially attending those until we get a resolution that includes sanctuary. Now, there's actually a few alterations in the resolutions, and that usually comes at the end.
Okay.
Where they will add something in regards to the prosecutor or the sheriff not upholding any unconstitutional laws. And some of them also have a little paragraph that helps to add to the definition of sanctuary.
Okay, but at any rate,
overall, the sanctuary is the key.
Okay, and so you guys, this discussion will be ongoing in those upcoming meetings. Well, Carrie, I want to thank you for coming in to start this conversation with me today. We will continue our discussion on Second Amendment sanctuary counties right after the break. Welcome back to Insights. We are continuing our conversation on Second Amendment sanctuary counties. And joining me to pick up that conversation is State Representative Phil Green. Welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
I'm glad that you're here with me today. So Second Amendment sanctuary counties and or cities, okay, this is a very highly charged conversation or topic. Am I fair to say that?
Oh, this is a very important topic for our country and for our state.
And why so? I see at this taping, we've got about, 15, 16 or so counties that have passed resolutions identifying themselves as Second Amendment sanctuary counties. So why is that necessary? Where is it that the Second Amendment rights of individuals in those counties are being threatened? Why is this process even necessary?
Well, I think this process is a reaction to what we are seeing nationally happen. And most recently was the events in the state of Virginia, where the government flipped and immediately some not gun rights, but some laws started being implemented to limit the gun rights. And so those in Michigan wanted to make sure that their voice was heard by the legislature and by the governor. Do
we see that maybe that's an overreaction at all, or is it really a legitimate reaction to things that have happened in Virginia?
I think it's very legitimate, and I would not say it was an overreaction simply because our form of government allows each and every individual to have a say in what they believe is most important. Since December 25th of 2019, close to 100,000 people have clicked on and joined the Second Amendment Sanctuary Counties group. That lets you know that this is a very charged situation.
It is, yeah.
But as well, people are very concerned about it, and that is great to know when you're a legislator.
Now, help me understand some more. We've had another guest on talking about Second Amendment sanctuary. Some people that are proposing the amendments don't like the term sanctuary. So what exactly does Second Amendment sanctuary city or county mean? What exactly are we trying to do with such an initiative?
Well, let's go back just to a simple dictionary.
Yeah.
And the term sanctuary simply means a safe place.
Yes.
And many of our communities have sanctuaries. They have a sanctuary for a church. They have a sanctuary for certain wildlife. Many have sanctuaries for maybe individuals who have been abused, and they can come and be safe there. And so what has happened with that term is over the past 10 years, some on the right feel that it has been hijacked, because there's been the sanctuary cities movement that would be opposed to illegal immigration. And so when this term started being used in this fashion, people got nervous because all that they could think of was the sanctuary cities movement on immigration. Where in reality, when you look at just the basic simple form of the term sanctuary, can our county, can our state be a safe place for gun owners. And so I don't see that term sanctuary as a tripping point.
Now, I guess since, does this amendment or these resolutions, do any of these resolutions, do they have any type of legal binding? Is there any teeth in them at all? So
what a resolution does
Yeah.
is it simply shows the intent of the body, as well as it shows where they stand on a topic. There is no legal binding that a resolution does, but what it does do is it simply says this is where we stand on this topic.
And if it's simply words on paper, this is where we stand, this is not a law, this is non-binding, where is the emotion in it? Why is it so emotionally charged, it seems like then?
Well, I think as we move forward, we begin to be able to vet our candidates a little bit better.
You're talking about political candidates.
Political candidates. And so one of the topics that people ask is, where do you stand on the Constitution? And so one of the topics, obviously the Second Amendment of the Constitution, is the right to keep and bear arms. The government
Right.
shall not infringe on that.
Right.
And so when people are vetting their candidates, they simply say, where do you stand? And this is a great opportunity for politicians, whether on the county or on the state, city level, to say, this is where I stand on the Constitution. And that allows their constituents to have confidence or to be very unwilling to have confidence in their elected leaders.
Now, we've heard this just loosely in news reports or just on social media comments like, quote unquote, they want to take our guns. And is there any truth behind that, or is that just an example, or one example, I should say, of some of the overreaction or some of the hysterics, or there seems to be such an emotional reaction to gun ownership and being able to protect that? But what are your thoughts on that type of reaction? They want to take our guns.
Okay, well, right now we are sitting in the northern part of the mitten of Michigan.
We are.
And that being the case, it is virtually everybody we talk to up here virtually is going to be supportive of the Second Amendment and gun rights. However, when you start moving around the state and then you start moving around the nation, you start to see different movements. And I lived for 10 years in Western New York State. And Western New York State is a beautiful area, much like this portion of Michigan. However, the government of New York State is not very gun friendly. And
what do you mean when you say they're not very gun friendly? What does that look like?
They are looking for ways to limit the guns, the capacity of the rounds of the guns, and then to license those guns as well, to restrict the possession of guns. And so I think it's very legitimate when you look at how New York State operates, how Virginia is moving in their operation of gun rights, that those of us who hold near and dear to that Second Amendment and our right to keep and bear arms for defense of ourselves and defense of the state, which is Article 1, Section 6 of the state constitution, I think that there is some very real reason to be concerned.
So is it fair to say that you would foresee that the limitations or pending limitations would restrict people from even purchasing guns, that somebody that otherwise would be eligible to purchase a gun, that there is something afoot wherein they would not be able to?
Well, both nationally and in the state of Michigan, there has been legislation proposed, bills turned in as ideas to be considered that would do exactly that.
Okay.
I've lived through my time, a short time here on earth, but I've seen where politicians will say, okay, wait a second, we have the Second Amendment, so we can't restrict the guns, but we can restrict how many bullets they can have. We can restrict what size of a magazine that they can put in their gun. We can restrict even, there's been several bills introduced to restrict the amount of ammunition a person can purchase. So I think it's a very real, it's not an existential threat.
Okay. All right, State Representative, we are going to be right back after this break to talk more about this topic. You're watching Insights. We are talking today about Second Amendment sanctuary counties. We'll have more on this discussion right after this. Welcome back to Insights. We're continuing our conversation with State Representative Phil Green, talking about Second Amendment sanctuary counties and or cities. And I've been told that this movement, if you will, in a sense, is a response to red flag laws. So explain that to me. How is this a response to that, and what are red flag laws?
So red flag laws have been introduced in most of our states to be considered by the legislature. And the red flag laws would simply say that anybody or a family member could put up a red flag about an individual, and then a judge could send law enforcement in to remove their guns while pending an investigation. And the struggle with that, obviously, we have is the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. We have the Fourth Amendment against illegal search and seizure. We have the Fifth Amendment against the self-incrimination. We have, obviously, the Second Amendment, where the government cannot deprive its citizens of arms. And so while on the outset it looks like a common sense measure, this looks really neat. We go back even to the 1700s when Benjamin Franklin said, those who, this is a very loose quote, but those who would give up their liberty to secure freedom or to secure security are worthy of neither. And so we have to protect our rights against a government who would come in and seek to oppress. And you say, that would never happen in America. However, 1700s it did. And the Second Amendment was a response to England taking up arms against its own people. And our founder said, never again. And so I would caution those who would say it's a common sense approach, because that common sense approach would then be dismantling our Constitution.
Well, though, but I think, isn't it the intent, though, of the red flag law, so that, as you were saying, that if somebody looks odd down the street, and I know that this person has weapons, isn't that the intent of the red flag law, not to bar someone from owning guns? And as I understand it, this is actually temporary. The red flag is temporary, that once law enforcement does their due diligence, maybe it's a background check or something, that it's more about public safety as opposed to infringement upon somebody's Second Amendment rights. Is that correct?
I think intent sometimes gets muddied up with actuality. And while that is a great intent for it to happen, sometimes those individuals that would call in these things have ulterior motives. Stories are often told of individuals with protection orders. Will call that individual they have a protection order against, get them to come over because they wanted to reconcile, and then once the person gets there, call the police to have them break their PPO. So I think the possibilities of abuse of that system far outweigh the positives. So I think one of the things we need to do is we need to return our society back to a community where we take care of each other. And what I mean by that is if I had a family member that I was very concerned about, I wouldn't call the police, and I wouldn't wait for 2 weeks for the judge to issue the order and to get it out. I would go to whoever my family member is, and I would talk with them about it and possibly remove the guns myself to protect my family. I would not try to get the government involved in a family situation.
Well, and talking about family, you have been a pastor.
Yes.
So you've seen this probably from a lot of different angles, a lot of different layers, and you talked about community, but some people don't have the strong community connections like we did years ago. And that's obviously because of social media. We see that, and that's why it's, people are on social media because I want to connect. So what do you say to that? What have you seen as a pastor? Is it your thinking, or could it potentially be that people that have actually had family members lose their lives at the hand of guns, that they see this probably a little bit differently?
Well, from a perspective standpoint, the interesting thing about being a pastor is you get to see all levels of society.
Right.
You get to deal with the individual who needs counseling for maybe substance abuse. You get to deal with the foster children that
Right.
are a result of some of the ills of society. You get to deal with the people who come to the church and say, hey, I need some help. But then as well, you're also dealing with the people who are giving so that we can spread that help. You get to deal with some of the leaders in the community. So being able to see that wide swath of society gives you a great perspective as we're dealing with people. And one thing I would really like us to see as we talk about this topic is how can we help the individuals who need the mental health,
Right.
the mental health issues
Right.
that need that help. And as we get actively involved in people's lives, our friends, our family members, our community members, when we get actively involved, at that point we can be a help and not expect the government to take care of everything for us.
And so that leads me to my next question. You are also a member of the, on the board, I should say, of the Michigan Coalition for Responsible Gun Ownership,
yes.
right, or responsible gun owners. So with that, and you said as we, look to be involved in our family members' lives as opposed to involving the government, how do you promote responsible gun ownership? How do we do that?
Well, obviously, we're going to teach responsibility from the very get-go of before you purchase a firearm, of having training and how to use it.
And is that gun safety? Gun safety,
gun training, however you want to say it. It all works together. And obviously, I'm a huge proponent of. My dad taught me gun safety, and I've taught my children gun safety. We hunt together, we shoot together, and so doing things responsibly, I think, that is the key there. And then as we move farther into maybe a concealed carry, of having the proper training of being able to carry concealed is a major portion of our platform.
Absolutely. Well, State Representative Phil Green, I want to thank you for coming in today to share your thoughts on this topic. It is a hot button issue here, but we do see that a lot of counties are moving forward with resolution and or language to identify themselves as Second Amendment sanctuary counties. So we'll be continuing to follow this story. And we just thank you for coming in and educating us on a lot of the things associated with this.
Very welcome, and thank you for letting me come.
Absolutely. Well, this has been Insights. I'm Sherry Stewart.
Insights into Northeast Michigan is produced by WBKB News. If you have any comments, suggestions, or topics you would like to see on a future show, please email WBKB News. This has been a production of Thunder Bay Broadcasting Corporation. All rights reserved.